Why are so many people converting to Islam? Question mark. Part 2. This is by Matno Kizi, and we have watched the part 1. I hope I will be remembering to put the link in the description box below if you want to see that part, which includes the factor of Andrew Tate. Well, we'll take a look at what will be the reason for people converting to Islam, part 2. Without further ado, let's watch.
Islamist,
Islamic,
Muslim Quran,
Islamic,
Muslim, Islamic,
Islamic Muslims.
Islam.
Muslims.
Islam, reason that I converted is Allah is the one true God.
So I actually took Shahada 10 days ago.
I'm very grateful the religion was brought to me and I accepted it, and God's made my path extremely easy.
And now I will tell you about the reasons why people are reverting to Islam. So I think a lot of people in the West are starting to realize that this life of hedonism just isn't working. Maybe temporarily it will make you happy. You feel wanted, you feel lustful, you feel lusted over. I found myself in that position as well. I do certain things, I live a certain lifestyle. At the end of the night or the next day, you feel terrible. You don't feel fulfilled in a sense. Maybe you achieve something that you wanted to achieve. You feel happy for about a day, a week, and then those feelings subside and you feel, I need this extra thing, otherwise I don't feel happy. With Islam, when you have that connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you feel fulfilled. And I think this is a big reason why people are reverting.
Okay, that's interesting. I think that can be a reason why people convert to a religion, especially if they are coming from non-religious lifestyle, total emptiness, searching for quick joy that suddenly gone, etc. Right, the next day. So they can find that in religion because it gives you purpose, etc. Right, but it doesn't really specifically lead to one particular religion, I would say, because some people can find it in Christianity, in Islam, in Buddhism perhaps, where suddenly they have a purpose, something like that. So, but it can make people go from to religion.
Something else that links in with hedonism is, I was reading Purification of the Heart by Hamza Yusuf, great book by the way. There is a concept right at the beginning of the book to do with shame. And I feel in Western society there is no shame. Everything is becoming acceptable. Celebrate this, celebrate that. You have a bunch of fat people saying, I'm just as healthy as you. Celebrate me. You have a bunch of other types of people, not going to say who. Celebrate me. There's no shame, there's no guilt. That's what they're trying to eradicate. In Islam, there is a strong sense of shame. If you do certain things, you'll bring shame upon yourself, shame upon your husband, your family, your parents, and most importantly, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is enough to prevent a lot of Muslims from doing stupid things. Now, of course, there are Muslims who will still do stupid things, but Muslims are not perfect. Islam is. And so I think a lot of people are seeing that, seeing the discipline, seeing moral objectivity rather than subjective morals that change over time. I think they see this has always been right, this has always been wrong. 1400 years ago, even now, it stands true. Another massive thing. So I was almost convinced of Islam at a certain point, but I think scientifically, mathematically, rationally, it didn't make sense to me. And when I researched it more and I found the absolute, what we would call miracles in the Quran, I could not say this isn't true. All of these come from the Quran, which was written 1400 years ago when science was in its complete infancy. Almost all of these were only discovered in the last 100 years, 150 years or so. Made every living thing from water. The Big Bang Theory, the heavens and the earth were one and then they were separated. This goes along with the expansion of the universe. It talks about this as well. 1400 years ago. It talks about embryology, how embryos or babies are formed. And even a scientist, I forget his name, I'll put it on the screen, he was a non-Muslim and he said this message that came from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam must have come from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It was so advanced for its time, and even up until about 150 years ago, it was unknown. This was 1400 years ago. The sky's protection. There's a layer of gases that surrounds the earth, which protects us. It protects our atmosphere. Iron not being natural to earth. The meeting of the seas. You know how you have two seas meeting and they're completely different? The sun moving in orbit. Mountains having roots and acting as stakes. Humans having pain receptors in the skin, internal waves in the ocean, the frontal lobe. And honestly, these are just a few of so many scientific miracles from the Quran. And on top of this, there are mathematical miracles as well.
Okay, on that, of course, it's specific to Quran, right? Because you cannot run away from the conclusion that this must be from the Creator, from God. Because if you try to find the answer of why, how come you have all of this information that could not have been known back then, and if you compile together, right, it's not just one, two, but many, consistently describing the world in a way that can only be understood now, way back then. So you cannot run away from the conclusion that this cannot be from other than the Creator Himself.
I think a big reason why people are reverting is because of the life guidance you get, the life structure, cutting out bad habits. For example, alcohol. I've mentioned this in my videos before. You have one drink every few months, cool, doesn't matter, does it? It doesn't really have an impact on you. Now, you start to enjoy that. You start to have a drink every week, becomes every day. And before you know it, you're addicted. But even if you're not addicted, the dent it will make in your bank account. I had so many friends who would spend so much money going out partying, spend it on drinks and other things. It would play a financial stress on them. I have a family member who was in a marriage. I went to their wedding. A couple years later, she found out that her husband had a gambling problem and alcohol. He was an alcoholic, He was an alcoholic, and he spent all of their money on gambling and drink. This is the kind of thing, this is the kind of impact that this thing could have. For the sake of what? Escaping your reality for a couple of hours, waking up with a hangover. How does this benefit you? In Islam, we cut it at the root. We say, no, it's not allowed, even in small quantities. Even, drugs, gambling, interests, like a lot of these things destroy society, destroys families, destroys people, destroys lives. So in Islam, we cut it out. We say no. And I think a lot of people who have suffered from these things outside of Islam realize that in this consumer world that we live in, with capitalism, where companies, all they're trying to do, they don't care about people, they're just trying to sell. That's all they're trying to do. They don't care about you. In Islam, we care about each other. As soon as you become Muslim, you're one of our brothers or sisters. The other aspects, obviously, in Islam promotes not eating too much. Third of your stomach should be food, third water, third nothing, like air, whatever you want to call it. Eating healthy, working out, working hard, providing for your family if you're a man, especially. Having kids, getting married, not talking about people in a negative way. Respecting your parents, respecting your family, respecting other religions, and being humble. And all of these things, obviously, there's so much more, but all of these things lead to a better society. It leads to you becoming a better person.
Okay, on that, because initially about alcohol, right? I think someone actually mentioned this, that people don't drink alcohol because of how it tastes. It's because they say, I have no idea, of course, but it says that they say that it doesn't taste good, but they drink it for the effect that it feel like it takes away your problem, something like this. And in my previous reaction video, the lady also said that she didn't even like the taste, but she forced herself to drink because wanting the effect, right?
A surprising point that I'm sure a lot of Christians and atheists and whoever else will hate, absolutely hate, is the fact that in Islam, women had rights hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, way before any woman in the West had rights. In the West, women had rights, what, 100 years ago? In Islam, they had rights 1400 years ago. Isn't that insane? Isn't that crazy? So like, women were championed in Islam and still are. The difference is now, in the West, we treat men and women as the same. In Islam, we know that men and women are not the same. We're created differently. We have different needs, different wants, different strengths, different weaknesses. Obviously, we have the same value in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but we are different. And so there are so many things, there's so many benefits that women get that men don't get, and vice versa. So for example, a man, he is responsible for taking care, providing and protecting his family, his wife, kids, all of that. A woman isn't. They don't have to provide, they don't have to protect, they don't have to do that. They can if they want to, of course. It's getting harder nowadays, especially in the West. I'm from London. A standard flat, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom flat is like £2,000 a month. That's just insane. Some people are lucky enough to afford that, but most people can't. And so I think this links in also that a lot of non-Muslims see hijabis, niqabis, or just see modestly dressed Muslims, and their first impression or assumption might be, oh, she has to dress that way, she's being oppressed, this and that. But once you actually talk to these hijabis, niqabis, or just Muslim women, you realize that they want to dress that way, because why would you want to show your body off to random people or men who are just lusting over you? In a sense, you lose value that way. I've seen so many female reverts who just love the idea of being in their feminine, not having to worry too much about money or providing, protecting, all of this stuff that the Western world has forced women into. That is oppression in itself, making them feel like they're not good enough. You have to act like a man. You still have to look like a woman, you have to put on makeup, you have to do all this and that, but you also have to act like a man, and you're a slave to your boss, you're a slave to work, rather than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Okay, on that point, that's interesting. I wonder whether that is actually one of the factors that people convert to Islam or revert to Islam. Not to say it's false point or anything, but meaning that become a trigger, meaning, oh, Islam give women these rights. Meaning I haven't seen something. Whether it becomes one of the puzzle pieces, I can see that, and I think that because when people say, okay, what Islam says about this, because there are people questioning, and then those answers, satisfy what they want to know, and from that perspective, I can see it. But on itself, become a factor that people convert. That's interesting if it ever happened.
I'm gonna leave it on this last point. Marriage and family are promoted. In the West, marriages are falling apart, higher rates of divorce, less kids are being born, and society is kind of falling apart at this point. Now, in Islam, not only is it encouraged, but you will be rewarded. It's sunnah to get married, of course, and have kids. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reward you for that. You know, I have friends who, they got married and suddenly they get a pay rise at work or they get a promotion. It's beautiful. It really is beautiful. And I've been told this so many times, if this happens, then you will get reward because you're doing what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has commanded you to do. But anyway, that wraps up this video. I know this is gonna annoy a lot of people. I'm just speaking from what I know, and I know that Islam is the truth. And to any of you who are watching who have been contemplating reverting, or maybe you haven't, but after watching this you want to do more research, reach out to me. I read every single message. How does that sound? So reach out. Hope you enjoyed the video. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I think the end is the recitation of Quran, right? So yeah, what do you think about this? Why the title again is why are so many people converting to Islam? Right, so yeah, interesting point of view. Feel free to comment your personal opinion and point of view. Thank you for watching. See you next time.